Hey guys, John Rettinger here. Some comparisons for you of the Blackberry Storm 2 versus its older brother, the Blackberry Storm 1. So before we get deep into the hardware, let's talk about some of the more aesthetic changes that you're going to notice between the two devices. Well, first, the Storm 2 has its lock and power button on the upper left-hand corner, whereas the Storm 1 had just a lock button. Power was done through the N sign. The Storm 1, actually the Storm 2 in particular, uses a new iconography. It actually says 3G in the upper right-hand corner with a little BlackBerry icon to let you know that you're connected to BlackBerry's fantastic push email system. The Storm 1 uses the more traditional 1x EV to let you know you're connected to Verizon Wireless's EVDO network. Not a big change, definitely something worth noting. Both devices here are running the newest versions of their operating systems, 5.0, so this should at least be as fair a comparison as possible. So I think that anytime you talk about the Storm and the Storm 2, you have to really lead in with the keyboards. So let's start with the keyboard on the Storm 1. Was the first phone to introduce technology called SurePress. It's a capacitive touchscreen, sort of similar to what's found on the iPhone, the T-Mobile G1, but underneath that was a sensor that actually created a clicking feel. So anytime that you pushed it on the screen, you were actually registering a click, and it felt like a click under your finger. With the Storm 1, there was only one sensor right in the middle. So anytime that you clicked off the middle, so the bottom left or the bottom right, it almost felt like you were on a seesaw. And if you were trying to type and type letters that weren't right in the middle, definitely led to a lot of increased inaccuracy. And BlackBerry is known for its fantastic mobile email services. So most people who are using a BlackBerry, email and text communication is important to them, especially having an accurate keyboard was one of the things that I think sunk the initial Storm. Another thing to mention is that since the whole screen actually recessed, anywhere you went there was a ton of dust that was getting caught all along the bridge of the screen. So eventually you have to pick it out with a paper clip or take it back to the store to have the screen pulled off because it would just stop working. Now the Storm 2 also uses SurePress technology, although they use a different implementation of it. They use something that's called PCO technology, which is from tech mumbo jumbo I'm not going to bore you with, but just know that they now have 4 sensors underneath the capacitive touchscreen, one in each corner, making for a much improved accuracy. So hitting things in the corners is now much more accurate than it was, although it does feel a little bit harder to press. You have to press a little bit more, but you get a very satisfying click, and I think that the improvements is found right when you're using the keyboard. So speaking of the keyboard, let me show you how that works on the Storm 2 and compare it to the Storm 1. I think that, again, this is where the Storm 2 really shines. So I'm going to open up a new message here. Okay, so I've got a new message open, and I'm greeted here with a SureType keyboard, similar to what's found on the BlackBerry Pearl series and the Pearl Flip. I'm actually a big fan of the SurePress. I used the Pearl for years, and I really liked it. Essentially what it is 2 words per letter. Now if you turn this, you get a full landscape keyboard as well. So let's do a keyboard demonstration on both. And I should mention that I'm not a BlackBerry Storm user, so I've only gotten to use these keyboards for the past few days, but I will demonstrate their accuracy for you, and then compare that accuracy to how well things go on the Storm 1 for a comparison to how much better typing is on the Storm 2. So we'll type a simple message, "This is a test." So I got "egos is a rear," so maybe it wasn't that accurate, but it was quick. Try that one more time. So this is a test. I think it just took a little while to get used to, but definitely became a bit more accurate as I used it. So let's rotate it over to landscape, and let's try the same thing and see how this works. Now one of the knocks that I had on the Storm's keyboard was as you put your finger over, you got that blue glow, but it's hard to tell which letter that blue glow was coming from. Well, it's not so difficult with the Storm 2. It seems to actually be relatively clear. So let's try that again, and I'll go as fast as I can. This is a test, perfectly accurate. Much easier to use, much easier to navigate, and you don't wait as long for the keys to pop back up. So if that was holding you off from buying a Storm 2, don't let the keyboard be a deterrent. It's actually very good and really easy to use this time around. So seeing how good the keyboard is on the Storm 2 makes me remember how bad the keyboard was on the Storm 1. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. You can see how far things have come, and this is even with the newest firmware update that supposedly increases accuracy. So I'm going to go into messages once again, and we will create a new one. Okay, so here we are in messages, and we've got that same shirt type keyboard that we saw on the Storm 2, and let's see how accurate this one is. So this is a test typed at no problem. You can definitely feel a much more squish, and you have to wait a little bit longer for the keys to pop back up, but not much of a problem in portrait. Let's try it in landscape, and we'll do the same thing, and I'll go as fast as I can. So not entirely as accurate. Screwed up on one word, but it can be fixed, I suppose. Keyboard has been improved with the software update 5.0 on the Storm 1, but it's still worlds better on the Storm 2. And speaking of text, one of the things now that we've got on the Storm 2, it's also been moved over to the Storm 1, is cut, copy, and paste, although it's sometimes a little bit of a sloppy implementation. So let me zoom in and show you how cut, copy, and paste works. We'll use that same message that I just typed, and I'm going to demonstrate this right now, of course, on the Storm 1. So while both devices don't necessarily have multi-touch the way you think of it, multi-touch like pinch and zoom like you can do on an iPhone, it does support multi-touch in the way that you can actually use 2 fingers on the device. So to cut, copy, and paste, you take those 2 fingers that we're talking about, tap on the screen, and you get those 2 little notifications that let you move anywhere you want. And if you have a couple lines, it can be a little bit squirrely. Seems to be working well right now. Find the text that you want, hit cut, and do the same thing when you want to paste it. Let's take a look at that same functionality on the Storm 2. We'll go ahead and open up an email message. So here's a soliciting email. Let's go ahead and say I want to copy some of this text. Take my 2 fingers. It doesn't always function the way you'd like it to. There we go. Now I can start selecting text. And as you see, as I move around, it follows with me. And it tends to jump around a bit, but you can get it to be as accurate as you'd like with just a little bit of time and patience. You go ahead and just hit copy, and you are all done. So one of the big complaints that people had with the initial Storm was that the screen rotation speed was quite slow. And I had that too when I had the first Storm. That's since been fixed with the software updates. Let's compare how fast screen rotation now works on both devices. So let's start with the Storm 2. Quick, it's actually recognizing them. When the Storm 1 first came out with the very first build of software, it would hardly ever recognize a screen rotation. So that is pretty quick on the Storm 2. Let's see how quick it is on the Storm 1. Not bad at all, and definitely is accurate. So let's try and put those 2 head to head, and we can see. And look at, in some cases, even the Storm 1 was a little bit faster, except for there. So overall, if you're deciding which one to get, Storm 2 just does everything Storm 1 did, except a little bit better. Just a little bit better. Typing is a little bit better. Speed's a little bit better. Internet browsing is just a little bit better. Things are just a little bit improved. And speaking of internet browsing, the last thing I want to show you is the internet browser, how this works and speed-wise on each. So I've got 3G bars on the same. I've got 4 3G bars on the Storm 1. I've got 3 on the Storm 2. Let's load up a web page and see how it looks. We'll load up the same web page. We'll load up youtube.com/John4Lakers. And we'll see how fast they render over exactly the same 3G network. The Storm 2, by the way, does have Wi-Fi, though it's turned off for this test. So they're both off. And the browser is just about the same on both devices. You do your zooming with the zoom in and zoom out buttons, and you can pan relatively quickly. Although you do notice the increased processor speed for panning on the Storm 2. And it looks like the Storm 2 is much faster, already loaded all the images. And now it's already done and complete. And you can just double tap to zoom in if you'd like. And double tap to zoom in if you'd like. Browser-wise, you're not looking at anything major changes from what you had with the Storm 1. So guys, hope you enjoyed. For exclusive content, check me out on Twitter, twitter.com/John4Lakers. And to learn more about Techno Buffalo, check out technobuffalo.com. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.